Random as hell here, back at it again. Episode 2 of Monster Jam's downfall. This one I will be talking about earlier controversies and earlier stuff that was a little bit more dumb, basically, that kind of tainted the sport since even the old days. This sport has never gotten the recognition it deserves, and it has always been kind of tainted with stupid things here and there that get really annoying really quickly. And you just have to kind of overlook that when you watch this stuff if you want to take it as a real sport. And I would love to get it back to its status as basically a real motorsport, because I love the whole passion of monster truck racing. I love the thrill and excitement, but sadly, it's basically at this point for a lot of these series lost its actual motorsport status. I'm not saying all of them. There are some. The other tours there are doing better than this, but Monster Jam is, I consider it no longer competition. It's a show, and it's a shell of its former self. So stay tuned if you want to see some of the earlier stuff that got people pissed off, or at least me pissed off. Monster Wars was the USHRA's rebrand in 1993 and led to one of the earliest monster truck controversies in the sport. And by the way, this is controversy with the fans. If there's anything in the sport itself that's controversial, like I believe 90 or 91 season where they banned one of the Bigfoots for nitrogen shocks, that's not what I'm considering here. I'm talking about where the fans are saying, this is stupid, please stop this. The racing was okay with this series. It wasn't horrible. I remember it being okay. There was something else that was the problem with this series, and it was basically the first hint in monster truck racing of pandering and just a stupid idea gone horribly wrong. What I speak of course, is this. Do you know what that is? That is a mascot. They gave the trucks mascots that trash talked each other in between the races. This is the dumbest fucking idea I've seen in a long time, and you feel genuinely embarrassed watching this because of how poorly acted and put together it is. It really looks like wrestling, and if there's one thing I want to keep out of monster truck racing, it is wrestling. I am not a wrestling fan, so that might just be me, but I fucking hate when people see monster truck racing as wrestling with trucks, and this does not help the stereotype at all. These are horrible mascots. They shouldn't have mascots for monster truck racing. They still kind of do today at some extent. If you really want to get particular, some of the trucks themselves are basically mascots now, and I'll get to that in a later video. But this is painful for me. This is one of the dumbest fucking ideas I've ever seen. And how they tried to actually do this to pull it off, I can't believe they actually tried this. I mean, I think my idea is that wrestling was big in the 90s, so they decided to try to take their cut on it. But it looks so fucking stupid. I really don't even want to talk about this one anymore. This one hurts. This one fucking hurts. This was the first blow to a lot of people saying, yeah, this is getting dumb. You're going to start seeing a little bit of a theme here, I think. I couldn't really find many photos of this one because this is kind of a more obscure thing that happened, and I didn't really feel like trying to take screenshots off of YouTube right now. During the early years of off of the TNN era, there was, what I was talking about before with Motorsports USA, I think I call it Monster Truck USA or something like that, and the last one by accident, USA Motorsports. There was a weird thing that happened where when they changed the format up, they changed it from in between racing having segments of people talking about racing and commenting on it, like in something you'd see like NASCAR or football. They changed the format up to basically weird scripted events, much like, wait for it, wrestling. Yay. Again, something I do not want in this sport and pisses me off. Now, for some reason, they kind of put Minger on this, but I feel like this didn't have to be done. They did this partially, apparently, this is from what I've read, because one of their hosts got pregnant during the time, which makes no fucking sense to me, because why couldn't they have continued with her being pregnant, or just let her have her time off and say, hey, she's gonna have a kid, here's a new host, instead of doing this shit. I don't know, that's what they link it to. Hey, the trend continues, this time getting a lot worse. Yeah, remember that TNN era I praised so much last video? There was one downside to it. It did lead to, an era where they did a lot of wrestling promotion. Yay. I'm so sick of this shit. So, during the early 2000s, they did a lot of wrestling bullshit. As you can see, that truck right there is the WCW Nitro machine, named after the WCW Wrestling Committee. I don't know what the fuck it's called. They had trucks named after wrestlers, including Bill Goldberg, which sadly is where Tom Metz really got his big break, because I really wish he got it somewhere else besides a truck named after Bill Goldberg. This is also where Medusa got into the sport, but that's not as big of a deal because she actually is a racing fan, and she actually does want the sport to be more legit. So that's like a little bit of like a half and half situation there. She has the wrestling mentality, but at least when she actually does stuff with monster truck racing, she actually is on my side, basically with saying this should be more like a sport than wrestling. So it's a half and half sort of thing. But yeah, I got sick of this really quickly. I really hate this whole wrestling aspect they threw into this shit. And this is luckily the last time we got a pure, very close to wrestling thing. The last controversy I'm going to talk about here isn't even much of a controversy, but just something that I kind of have a love-hate relationship with. And that'll come up right about now. Scratch what I just said, because there is one more controversy I thought of. This is the Feld-owned monster trucks controversy. So a lot of the monster trucks you see, especially the higher up on the ranks, are owned by Feld Motorsports and actually are usually taken care of all in their own shop on site. This has led to a lot of controversy that these teams tend to be treated a lot better. And there is really no rivalry between them because they all have the same money going to the same places. These drivers tend to have a lot better treatment at these races. The teams tend to have a lot more freedom there for these trucks. Even if you could barely even call them teams, really, it's just a giant machine of, producing monster trucks to run. They really don't. It feels like they really don't care about who wins between these ones as long as it's one of theirs. The independents who are not monster trucks not made by Feld Motorsports, and the teams that are owned by independent drivers, they tend to be treated less fairly. And one of the things that people notice is there's a lot of Feld-owned monster trucks that tend to be thrown into the World Finals, even if they seem like the drivers in those trucks didn't deserve it that year, as there are a lot of independents that kind of get stomped over. This is an ongoing debate. Some people say it's true, some people say it's not, but I personally do think that it looks like Feld Motorsports treats their drivers and teams so much better than the independents, especially with the fact that, by my knowledge, independents are not allowed to sell their merchandise at Monster Jam races, which is a very big income for racing, and that's pretty sad. There's been talk for years about wins being handed over to Feld Motorsports drivers over independents, about even time to work on the trucks being extended for Feld Motorsports teams and not for independents, such and so on. And I think it's probably true because we've been seeing a lot of independent teams leaving Monster Jam in the past couple of years. I think they're just getting tired of being walked on by Feld Motorsports. This wasn't even just a Feld Motorsports problem. This all started with the US HRA, of which, if you don't know, this is the reason Bigfoot does not run in Monster Jam Racing, to my knowledge, is, in Monster Jam Racing, sorry. Bob Chandler did not want to sign his truck over to their team, which would make it property of the USHRA, now Feld Motorsports. Dennis Anderson did, though, with the Gravedigger. So I'll take with that what you will. I don't know how other people really feel about this one, but this is one thing I wanted to bring up. Again, kind of the wrestling aspect in here. This time not really involving much wrestling, though, but something I'm not a big fan of. Scripted rivalries. This one is the big one. Gravedigger versus Maximum Destruction. Dennis Anderson versus Tom Meents, which is basically just a put-on rivalry by Feld Motorsports. And the USHRA, for that matter. The reason I don't have as big of a problem with this is it's not like secretive like other scripted rivalries I've seen in sports in the past, where they try to say, oh yeah, it's real, they hate each other, if they had the chance they'd kill each other. No, since the beginning, Dennis Anderson and Tom Meents have both admitted since the beginning, willingly the fans and USHRA and Feld Motorsports both admit, this is a friendly rivalry. They are very good friends in real life. They're just rivals on the track. It's just because they're both good drivers and they tend to go up against each other a lot. That's the only reason this exists. Though it is still kind of a scripted rivalry, this one isn't that bad because at least they admit that it's for fun and they're not trying to play it up like some fucking wrestling bullshit. Everyone in it admits that they are at least doing it out of fun, and that's it. So that is it for part 2 on early controversies. My next video will probably be on the World Finals and their change over time and some of the controversies in there about what has happened to the World Finals. And the first half of that won't really be much. I'll probably just skim through what happens in the first half of the World Finals, but the second half will be interesting. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time in my next video.